morning, everyone. I'm really impressed you're here and semi-coherent, probably fully coherent. I'd like to just begin by asking you a question. You get two choices. Which is more terrifying, the shower scene from Psycho or narrowing the focus of your firm? We have a tremendous amount of fear around focus, don't we? The idea that, well, if we narrow what we do, if we more finely define what our competencies are, isn't that going to mean less business instead of more business? And I'm here to try and persuade you this morning that actually this is the route to success for companies large and small, not just professional service firms, but companies of all types. I think one interesting, useful analogy is to think of our firms as a knife, and in this case, a Swiss Army knife. I wish this were a knife with a single blade. That would illustrate the point, but we've got lots of blades because it's difficult for us to describe our firms in any other way. Let's just take a prototype positioning strategy here. We commit our energies and talents to being our clients' most valued and trusted advisors, representing them creatively and effectively by providing a wide variety of services in a broad spectrum of industries. That isn't really what I would call a focused strategy. There's a lot of blades coming out of that knife and all sorts of tools, can openers and screwdrivers. But actually it's worse than that. It actually looks more like this. Most of the time, and there's a name for this. This is called feature creep. Wikipedia defines feature creep as the ongoing expansion or addition of new features in a product or service. These extra features often result in bloat or overcomplication. We've all had this experience, haven't we, as consumers? When you bought that audio receiver and brought it home and you look at the back of it and you think, what is all of that? What could I possibly plug into all of those inputs? This kind of complexity is found most especially in consumer electronics. And there's even a model for this. It's called the featureitis curve, in which we've got user happiness and number of features on the two axes. There's a time where we actually are happy to get a few more features. I'm glad they added this, fantastic. We reach the happy user peak. But unfortunately, the manufacturer doesn't stop there. They keep adding and adding. Our happiness goes down. Well, I guess better check the manual. Hey, where did I put that? And my favorite, now I can't even do the one simple thing I bought this for originally. You've had that experience. And then we're quite dissatisfied with the product. It's now too good, too complex, too many features. If we apply design thinking to our business strategy, we see that leading companies say no much more than they say yes. Rather than chase the market with follow-on features, copying what others are doing, they lead the market with a constrained focus. So this is a discipline that you develop within your firms. We all have probably have, I don't know, I have probably 4 or 5 of these on my coffee table next to the television from different systems I've owned in the past. And it seems that even trying to figure out how to turn on your television gets harder and harder. But then along comes Apple TV, and they dramatically simplify the remote. Maybe you've noticed the new remotes in the new televisions. I have a new Samsung now that actually the remote is pretty simple, modeled mostly after Apple TV. And this thinking runs deep in the Apple organization, which I think is one of the stellar examples of mastering the art of simplicity. They actually, when they teach their people the principles of Apple and design, their goal is to make products simpler and simpler and simpler. So we've got the old mouse on the far left, you might recognize it, and Apple actually takes things away. They take features from the device and make it easier and easier, simpler and simpler. And they use Pablo Picasso in one of their classes where they show these are all four drawings of bulls done by Picasso. In his early years, he would draw a bull in great detail, and the older he got, the more he simplified everything he drew, so that by the time he was doing his most famous work, the bull looked a lot simpler, but you can see it's still a bull. So Apple's whole premise is we actually want to take features away, not add them. We want to make our products powerful and very useful, but we want to make them very easy to use. So it's counterintuitive, isn't it? When Steve Jobs came back to Apple in 1997 after having been ousted and replaced by John Sculley, the head of PepsiCo, Sculley did what most corporate managers do. He diversified. He greatly expanded Apple's product line so that by the time Jobs returned to the company, Apple had over 350 products. Jobs stood up in front of his core team and said, okay guys, first thing we're going to do, goes up to a whiteboard, draws an X through the number 350, says we're going to cut this product line down to just 4. We're going to offer 2 desktops and 2 portables, and that's it. We're going to refocus on a few products and do a few things well. Even today, as the world's most valuable company, Apple has a very, very small product line compared to its direct competitors. And this is by design. Less is not. This is the idea that less is more. Here's a product lineup of a company you recognize. There are beverages and snacks and oatmeal and dips and so forth. This is PepsiCo. They have a market value of $160 billion. Well, a similar company, the Coca-Cola Company, used to have a product lineup that looked very similar. They had also snack foods and other things that they had bought and added to their product line. But several years ago, Coke decided, you know what, we are going to eliminate everything in our product line that you can't drink. We're just going to focus on beverages. And there they surpassed Pepsi and have been far ahead of Pepsi ever since. So again, quite counterintuitive that by subtracting you actually grow. You actually are able to compete more effectively against those that are trying to support lots of different products that takes a lot more capital and a lot more energy. I love the quote from Miles Davis, the jazz musician. It's not the notes you play that matter, it's the notes you don't play. It's all those rests in any piece of music. If you've seen the movie Amadeus, after premiering one of his pieces in front of the King of Prussia, Amadeus, Mozart is talking to the king behind stage, and the king said, well, that was very good, but there were too many notes. And Mozart said, well, actually, there were just the exact number of notes that are required for me to write this piece. It's the notes that aren't there that make the music, that make the piece, that distinguish it from other music. So there's a psychological principle here that impacts all of us, and that's this idea of the confirmation bias. We tend to confirm in our minds the idea that we are special or we are different because we're so close to our own business and our own business model. We're impacted by the cadence of competition, and it creates what is called category connoisseurship, meaning we are connoisseurs of our category. We're so close to it, and we look so often at the business strategies of our direct competitors that we've really lost our sense of objectivity. And to us, things that are very different do not appear different at all to our prospects and our clients. A marketing academic, Youngme Moon, says, confirmation bias and category connoisseurship turn the company brand into a myth, a false collective belief, an ideological relic, meaning to us it's different, our strategy is different. To the outside world, we look very much like the other firms in our space or in our region. And there is lots of evidence that while choice is important, too much choice, it really, really works against us. That the term here is the paradox of choice. There's an entire book about it, several books, one by Barry Schwartz, who I'm going to have talk about this just for a moment.
With so many options to choose from, people find it very difficult to choose at all. I'll give you one very dramatic example of this, a study that was done of investments in voluntary retirement plans. A colleague of mine got access to investment records from Vanguard, the gigantic mutual fund company of about 1 million employees in about 2,000 different workplaces. And what she found is that for every 10 mutual funds the employer offered, rate of participation went down 2%. You offer 50 funds, 10% fewer employees participate than if you only offer 5. Why? Because with 50 funds to choose from, it's so damn hard to decide which fund to choose that you'll just put it off till tomorrow, and then tomorrow, and then tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, and of course tomorrow never comes. Understand that not only does this mean that people are going to have to eat dog food when they retire because they don't have enough money put away, it also means that making the decision is so hard that they pass up significant matching money from the employer. By not participating, they are passing up as much as $5,000 a year from the employer, who would happily match their contribution. So paralysis is a consequence of having too many choices.
So common sense would say, if you're a manufacturer of jams and jellies, that the more the better, right? The more varieties, the better, and the more shelf facings we can get in the store, the better. What happens, though, is that massive display of jams and jellies becomes paralyzing for those of us standing there trying to make a decision. And it turns out that if you want to sell more jam, offer fewer choices, not more. You'll sell more offering 3 than you will offering 13. Again, it's counterintuitive, isn't it? McDonald's, average number of items on the menu of a McDonald's drive-thru. Anybody want to guess? It fluctuates. Right now it's about 57. And you've had this feeling, you drive up and you think, oh wow, I need some time here, I need some time. They want your order, but you're confronted with 57 choices. Versus if you've ever been to an In-N-Out Burger in the US, they have raving fans based in California, and now you can find them lots of other places. Look at that menu. They basically have three items. They've got burgers and fries and drinks. And In-N-Out Burger generates 3 times the profit that McDonald's does. This is the power of focus, and it also is a demonstration of doing a few things well can be a much more profitable route to success. We're all familiar with this example. It's just so impressive that all this time Google has maintained their simple interface, and they've resisted the temptation to clutter their page with anything else. No ads, no other places where you can click through, versus Yahoo, which is not doing well, as you know, and offers up this confusing cacophony of choice. Apple stores. You've all been in an Apple store. It's pretty sparse, isn't it? compared to an average retailer like a Best Buy, where you're overwhelmed the minute you walk through the door. Apple stores have the highest sales per square foot of any retailer in the United States. It's probably true globally. So when we keep adding and adding and adding and a new feature, a new version, this kind of augmentation is really just an expensive route to commoditization. I think toothpaste is a great example. You probably can't read a lot of those, but these are all actual versions of Colgate toothpaste. Some pretty obscure ones. The obvious of teeth whitening and gum health and cinnamon and cool mint, but also there's, Spider-Man and kids toothpaste. And it hasn't helped Colgate's sales. It's in effect cannibalizing their own brand. So I'll make a bold statement that your firm is very likely over-designed and over-diversified. I can say that because that's true of the great majority of businesses of any type. And when we get together in annual strategic planning meetings to think about next year and to plan the future, of these two columns, where do we spend most of our time and energy? We're talking about how do we expand, broaden, widen, add, right? What can we add? What else can we do? What new thing could we do versus what should we stop doing? What are some of the businesses we're in that are only marginal and we don't have the kind of expertise to continue to support it? What can we subtract? What can we condense and remove and deduct, right? Those kinds of discussions are actually the essence of strategy. That's the essence of strategy. Michael Porter, Harvard Business School, says the essence of strategy is choosing what not to do. It's easy to decide what to do. We can develop that big, long bullet point list of initiatives and goals and actions and plans and just keep adding to that, and the document gets longer and longer. But that's not strategy. Strategy is deciding what not to do, because we're then making a choice, a deliberate choice about our business model, not just blindly diversifying because it seems the natural thing. Strategy is the services you don't offer. It's the clients you don't have. It's the practices you don't have. It's the markets you don't serve. That's strategy. Because those are the things that define and characterize your business and make you different from the firm down the street. If you look at IKEA, we've all been to IKEA. We've all had the experience probably of coming home and spending a Saturday afternoon assembling an IKEA bookcase or like a whole day. What IKEA doesn't offer is the essence of their strategy. It's not assembled, it's not delivered, it's not meant to last forever. All of these things are deliberate foundations of the IKEA strategy. But yet, we love IKEA for its selection and its design and its prices, its affordability. That's a business built on subtraction. Chris Zook, James Allen write in their very insightful book, The Repeatable Business Model, differentiation is the essence of strategy, the prime source of competitive advantage. The sharper your differentiation, the greater your advantage. And this differentiation scares us, doesn't it? Because it means deciding what not to do. What not to do. Let me show you the power of deciding to do fewer things better.
On the outskirts of the sleepy town of Gütersloh in northwest Germany is Miele, a company that's been making kitchen and laundry appliances in the area for over 100 years. Across the country, over 10,000 of its employees produce over 1 million washing machines and tumble dryers every year. With annual sales of 2.8 billion euros, The company now has 8 plants across Germany. Miele is one of many small and medium-sized German businesses known collectively as the Mittelstand. Firms like these provide the muscle to the country's economic might. Other nations may quake in the face of competition from Asia, but not Germany. Its luxury manufacturers sell posh cars to the new Asian rich, and the Mittelstand makes machine tools and equipment that Chinese firms use to make consumer goods. But what makes the Mittelstand so successful? In recent years, politicians have done a lot to help. In reforming the country's labour market, successive governments have been ahead of the curve. But so have Mittelstand companies themselves, constantly innovating, adapting and evolving. By avoiding debt, specialising in niche markets, developing product-related services and investing in vocational training, Germany's small and medium-sized companies have remained at the cutting edge of global manufacturing. The Mittelstand's success has attracted admiring glances from the rest of Europe, but it's built on foundations that may be hard to copy, from Germany's family traditions to its skilled workers. Like Silicon Valley, the Mittelstand remains one of a kind.
Specialized niche markets. A machine tool that nobody else in the world makes or doesn't make nearly as well. Not this broad, diversified line. These companies are remarkably profitable, some of the most profitable in the world. Focusing on just a few core competencies actually, from a client point of view, provides the benefits that they seek most from a firm. If you think about what is it that they ultimately want from us, an effective solution to their problem, quality by focusing our expertise on just a few things instead of many things. Delivered quickly, they want speed. The more expert we are in a particular area, the faster we can solve a problem. The more we can apply our intellectual capital to solving a business need. And cost effectiveness, experts who get it right the first time. Not that are wading through a complex matter that we don't have that much experience in, but we feel like, well, everybody else does this, so we ought to do it as well. The Boeing Dreamliner, which I've yet to fly in, I really hope I can find an opportunity. I fly a lot, but I've not been in the 787 yet, is a really great example of the need in today's global economy for firms that do just a few things well. Boeing headquartered in the US, but the parts that comprise the Boeing 787 come from 70 countries, 387 different suppliers. The wings come from the United Kingdom, the cargo holds from Sweden, the fuselage from Italy. Now, couldn't Boeing do all of this themselves? Answer is no. Because each of the components in this state-of-the-art aircraft are so technical and so specialized that it would be impossible, almost inconceivable, that any one company would possess all of that intellectual capital under one roof. And this is true in professional services, where the trend is clearly toward the larger companies hiring best-in-class providers, best-in-class, best of breed. Not those who know a little about a lot, but those who know a lot about a little. Difference between a generalist and a specialist. We make the mistake often, I think, of assuming that the fact that we've been in business 100 years or 150 years, or that we're well known, or that we have awareness that exceeds our competitors, that our reputational capital is a strategy. That's not a strategy. It's an important asset. It certainly helps to have it, but reputational capital by itself doesn't differentiate your firm. It helps make it famous. It helps you sell to prospects, but it's not the definition of a strategy. Roger Martin, who's written a lot of great books about this, professor at University of Toronto, he's got a really interesting test in which he says there's an essential first question that you can ask of any strategy to test whether this is an effective strategy. And here's his question. Would it be rational to choose the opposite of your strategy? In other words, could a business make the opposite choice without looking stupid? This is an interesting exercise. Let me show you a couple of examples. So here's a so-called positioning strategy from a top 100 Australian law firm. I've reworded this just a bit. You'll recognize some of the language from earlier. We commit our energies and talents to being our clients' most valued and trusted advisors. We demonstrate continuous, unremitting, effective effort and an unwavering adherence to the highest professional standards in the service of our clients. That's an actual stated strategy of a firm. So let's use Martin's test here. Could we rationally and reasonably argue the opposite? Well, let's try it. We commit our energies and talents to being our clients' least valued and trusted advisors. We demonstrate very little effort and adhere only to minimum professional standards in the service of our clients. So I guess the answer is no. We can't logically argue its opposite. We can't make the opposite choice of that strategy without looking stupid. What about working with you to achieve your commercial goals? Let's try the opposite of that. Working against you to achieve your commercial goals? Our hand-picked legal talent cut through complexity to deliver decisive direction for your business. Well, what's that stated as the opposite? Our randomly selected talent base provides indecisive recommendations for your business. So no, doesn't pass the test, does it? Does not pass the test. If you look at your stated strategy, go to the home page of your website, the first slide you show in a new business presentation, and state that strategy in opposite terms and see if it makes any sense. Let me show you how this does work with a strategy that actually is a strategy. This is Fenwick & West, a US-based firm, national technology life sciences firm, provides comprehensive legal services, technology, life science clients of national and international prominence. Could you argue the opposite of that? That you're not in technology and life sciences, that you specialize in offshore manufacturing or something very different? Of course, you could state that in an opposite way and it would still make sense. That you're at the opposite end of working for technology and life sciences. You work for companies that are in commodity manufacturing businesses. That's still okay. That passes. That works. So 10 things that a positioning strategy is not. We mistake these for a strategy. It's not a tagline or slogan. It can become one, but by itself it's not a unique name or logo. Your commitment to excellence, your long and distinguished history, your deep commitment to client relationships, your track record of recognition and rewards, your reputation as a great place to work, your exceptional lineup of talent, your ability to solve complex problems, or your reputation for outstanding client service. These things are important, but they are not differentiating. Most firms would claim the things I have on the screen, wouldn't they? So important, not differentiating. Relevant, not unique. This is definitely not the way to arrive at your strategy. You've seen this whiteboard exercise before, the fill the blank, relentless focus on quality, and our guy says, quality, no, we already use that. Quality, leadership, all of those cliches that unfortunately end up being in our so-called statements of strategy. So let's just do a quick group thought experiment here. Let's imagine a category in which 10 companies are forced to operate blind to what each other was doing. These competitors would have to make all their business decisions, what to offer, how to innovate, how to price, etc., without the benefit of knowing what the other companies are doing. What would be the result? We don't have the benefit of seeing what our competitors are doing. 3 years later, what would be the result? Well, I say the result would be 10 birds all flying off in different directions. And that's a good thing. In other words, these companies would not be that similar because we wouldn't be looking and copying what our competitors are doing. We'd be innovating, we'd be developing our business model based on our own unique strengths and core competencies. It wouldn't be the flock of seagulls all headed in the same direction, which is essentially what most businesses look like. So how do we go about putting a finer point on our strategy? I'd like to share with you what I find to be a really interesting film clip. This is from the movie A Beautiful Mind, which many of you have probably seen, that illustrates the place to start.
Glad you could come, Doctor. Hello. Right this way.
We've been intercepting radio transmissions from Moscow.
Computer can't detect a pattern, but I'm sure it's code.
Why is that, General?
Ever just know something, Dr. Nash?
Constantly.
We've developed several ciphers. If you'd like to review our preliminary data. Doctor?
6737 0316 39 42314
He's able to take those numbers and look up latitude, longitude, gives them the information they're looking for. So the hero of our movie has powers of discernment that most normal humans certainly don't have. But what he's doing is where we need to start when defining our strategy, and that is looking for patterns. We spend way too much of our lives looking at numbers and crunching over spreadsheets, what Clayton Christensen calls the fast food of business, spreadsheets. But what we really want to look for are patterns that indicate what is it that we do consistently well that makes is the strongest predictor of our current and future success. We want to start with divergent points of view, divergent information, divergent ideas from a wide variety of stakeholders. But then, as we just observed, we then need to make some decisions. We need to make some choices. That's what strategy is, deciding what is not going to make the list. A useful way to do this, and this is fashionable now in software development firms and marketing firms, is to identify these patterns using what are called affinity diagrams, where you start with a whiteboard full of seemingly disparate Post-it notes that, like Russell Crowe, you stand back and you look for the patterns. Where are the commonalities here? Where are the things that actually link together? Pull those notes off the board and cluster them together in kind of like-minded sets. This is a really interesting exercise to do at your next off-site planning meeting. So to get even more specific now about developing strategy, I think exists at primarily at the intersection of two areas, and that is defining what it is you do, the problems you solve, and who you serve, the markets in which you have expertise. At the crossroads of these two areas is really where the primary definition of strategy lives. And let me just show you what I mean here. If you decide that your essential strategy is to focus on a particular kind of competency, a particular offering skill set, so that's a what, you've got a focused what, it allows you to serve lots of different markets. Let me show you what I mean. If you decide you're essentially an intellectual property law firm, you can then apply that expertise to lots of different market sectors. We call this strategy a solution superiority strategy. If you are an intellectual property firm like Ray's, you can serve lots of markets because lots of markets need help in IP law. If you offer insurance law as your main area of focus, there are lots of different market segments that need that specialty. The opposite is also true. If you decide that your core strategy is to focus on a market sector, say energy companies, then you can offer a broader array of service offerings. We call this strategy markets mastery. So if you are serving families as a market, obviously there are lots of different services needed by families. If you're serving media companies, if you're in the media arts sector, serving that specific business category, those kinds of businesses have needs in lots of areas. So you can do one or the other, but not both. If your strategy, and this is human nature, well, no, we actually want to work in quite a few markets. We want to serve, we want to offer a wide variety of services and competencies. Well, what is that? That's the country lawyer. You hang out a shingle and you do a little bit of everything, country doctor. I don't think that's what most firms here aspire to be, either now or in the future. So let's look even deeper at these two areas. When we make decisions about our offering, we just need to realize that we can be good at something, but we can't be good at everything. And when clients and prospects, even at a very large firm, when they see a list like this, it's just not credible. It's not credible. There are very, very few organizations that can do that many things well. Mike Rayner puts it this way. He says, because time and resources are not limitless, we live in a world of inescapable trade-offs. Our entire business life is a series of trade-offs, isn't it? We can do something, but we can't do everything. Even in a business like soft drinks, you can make choices and guide your own destiny.
I went to work with my father when I was 5 years old. Galco's itself goes back to like the roots is 1897. About 10, 11 years ago, the Pepsi-Cola salesman came in and he said, I got the best buy you're ever going to get on a pallet of Pepsi-Cola cans. I'm only going to charge you $5.59 a case. And I said, thank you, but no thank you. I'm going to send my customers down the street to Ralph's because they're going to be on sale down there for $1.99 a 12-pack. And he says, well, you can't do that. Pepsi-Cola is a demand item, and your customers are going to demand that you carry Pepsi-Cola. And I said, my customers are going to be happy I was honest with them and send them down the street. They can buy them cheaper than I can buy them. And after 2 weeks of really being upset, I said, thank you very much, Pepsi-Cola, for reminding me that I own my shelf space and I can do anything I want.
Deciding not to stock one of the leading brands. So in our firms, we have two classes of offerings. We have capabilities and we have competencies. Competencies are the services and solution sets that we deliver in a consistently excellent way. Capabilities are things that, yeah, we can do that, but it's not the same as a core competency, the things in which you have the most expertise. You can look at it also through this framework, which I think is really interesting. There was a book written several years ago called The Long Tail by Chris Anderson. He's an economist and was the editor of Wired magazine, kind of interesting combination of skill sets. He argues that everything in business can be plotted on this model where there's a set of offerings that live in the short tail. These are blockbuster products. These are blockbuster movies and books and television shows, and in our world, blockbuster service offerings that are highly valuable and very unique. We've developed them. They don't exist everywhere. High value. Then there's in the mid-tail, our bread and butter offerings, the kinds of things that are quite essential for us to be doing with an offer to our clients, but not that differentiating. But the majority of what we do lives actually in the long tail. These are the services that are standardized and widely available, easy to find almost everywhere, and there's a lot of price pressure on those kinds of offerings because they are in effect commoditized. So to make deliberate decisions about discontinuing or finding other ways to handle the services that live in the long tail, finding a profitable way to handle the work that lives in the mid-tail, and optimizing the work in the short tail. As Seth Godin said in one of his many books, in a world of abundance, you need to do something that's scarce. What's scarce is valuable. What's scarce is valuable. It's a law of supply and demand. So when we go to the average law firm website, and I don't mean to pick on these firms, I could have picked any three firms almost at random, and there would be a services section, wouldn't there? Services. Well, is that really how we ought to be framing our competencies? Are they services? Much better to think of them and to frame them and present them as solutions to problems. And to sit down and think about what are the problems we solve for our clients? How can these be packaged up in a unique way? And what services support those solution sets? To frame what you do as the solution to a problem, not a bullet point list of services that does nothing to differentiate you from any other firm. Give you an example of the transformative power of reframing what you do. This is from the U.S. company Bausch & Lomb, who is probably a 100-year-old company. They always saw themselves as being in the optics business. They make lenses, eyeglasses, contact lenses, lenses for microscopes, telescopes. But their team got together a few years ago to reimagine what it is that they do as not as a product, but as a solution to their customers' needs, and it completely reinvigorated and re-energized their business. Because the answer to that is, we're in the sight business. Optics is the means, sight is the end. Optics is the product, sight is the problem that we solve. We help our customers see better. So they then develop not just lenses, but they have a line of vitamins that improve eye health. And so it's okay to add to your service lineup in ways that are complementary to your core competency and support it, as Bausch & Lomb did. Nestle did a similar thing when the instant coffee business was no longer growing and definitely commoditized. They had to reimagine, well, that's a thing, that's a product. what is it that we really sell? What's the solution, the problem we really solve for our customers? We solve coffee convenience. We make coffee convenient for people, and that helped them, that led to the development of the Nespresso product line, which has been incredibly successful for them. Let's look a little deeper at the question of the markets we serve. We have a core market, or should have a core market, where most of our competency and expertise resides, but over time we can identify adjacent markets that are complementary to that core market. They overlap in some way with that core market. They don't live outside as their own planet. And you can take almost any industry, and we do this exercise all the time, these mind maps, where you just discover all the complementary businesses, all the adjacent markets, where you have some opportunity, but they're all related, aren't they? Well, you might be sitting there thinking, but we already offer this kind of specialization. They're called practices. Well, not really. This is not what I mean. What I'm talking about here is a way to have what you do operate together in a synergistic way. This is the fairly young Walt Disney, who sat down in the 1950s and mapped out basically Disney's strategy map. And it starts with what you see here, the creative talent of the studio, theatrical films. That is their core competency of Disney. But from that, Disney was able to develop their theme parks, some television programs, the merchandise that they license, publications, magazines, and of course the music, which your kids walk around the house singing, if I hear Let It Go one more time from Frozen. But these are all complementary and overlapping synergistic to their core competency of theatrical films. This is the idea of an ecosystem that provides exponential benefits for your clients. An ecosystem of aligned expertise where what you have, because we all talk about how we're integrated, right? Or integrated. Well, this is a very specific type of integration, which is not vertical integration or horizontal integration. It's functional integration, where what you do works together in a beautiful ecosystem of competencies. Apple is a great example of this. The Mac talks to the iPhone, which talks to the iPad, which talks to your iWatch, which all talks to iTunes. These things all work together in an ecosystem that has tremendous value to Apple customers. Nike has a similar thing. You can buy Nike shoes and apparel and equipment, but those shoes talk to the Nike Fuel Band on your wrist, which then talks to the Nike Plus app on your iPhone, or their sport watch to help you become a better runner. Well, how did I do today? What's my goal for tomorrow? A valuable ecosystem where things that on the face of it don't seem that similar, a shoe and an app, but they work together, again, to work in a synergistic way. And we can do the very same thing inside professional services. Instead of diversifying into new sectors and new practice areas, grow your business by mining the potential in your current area of expertise, by creating your version of the Apple ecosystem. Develop offerings that meet the underserved needs of your current and prospective clients. Develop new bundles of services and solution sets as programs. So take what you already do and put them and create a program, which is this ecosystem. Bundle your offerings in a way that's never been done before. Unique combinations of services that competitors would find difficult to copy. Steve Jobs famously said, the iPhone, the very first iPhone, there was no new technology in that device. It was a unique recombination of his existing technologies. That's pretty startling insight into what looked like one of the most disruptive innovations ever. It was a recombination of existing technologies. and create simpler, less expensive versions of over-designed offerings that appeal to less demanding customer segments. In the book Strategy That Works, when your company is coherent, you don't have to struggle to overcome the strategy to execution gap. There is no gap. All your products and services are supported by the same group of distinctive capabilities serving the same value proposition. So that when you have coherence between your service offerings, your practice areas, your market sectors, they work together in this exponential way. And you end up bringing your A game to every matter, to every engagement. You're like the 300 Spartans.
Only the hard and strong may call themselves Spartans. Only the hard, only the strong. We march for our lands, for our families, for our freedoms. We march.
Dark sauce. What a pleasant surprise. This morning's full of surprises, Leonidas. We've been tricked.
More than a few hundred. This is a surprise.
Silence. We heard Sparta was on the warpath. And we were eager to join forces. If it is blood you seek, you're welcome to join us. But you bring only this handful of soldiers against Xerxes? I see I was wrong to expect Sparta's commitment to at least match our own. Doesn't it? You, there. What is your profession?
I'm a potter, sir.
And you, Arcadian, what is your profession?
Sculptor, sir.
You?
Blacksmith.
Spartans! What is your profession? See, old friend, I brought more soldiers than you did.
You have the coherence premium. And this has been widely studied. Coherent companies earn twice the profit, sometimes 3 times, sometimes 10 times the profit of those that are diversified. It's counterintuitive. But it's always true in every industry that's ever been studied. A simple test that my friend David Baker calls the stopwatch test, very simple. Just start the clock and count the amount of time it takes a client to find a firm that could replace you. Oh, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Is there a lot of firms? If there are a lot of firms that to the uninitiated, uneducated prospect look very similar to yours, then you may have failed the stopwatch test. So I'd like to end up just with three closing questions I'd like to have you think about or answer in your own minds. What's the risk of having a focused business strategy? Is that risky? Yeah. It really presents a lot of cognitive obstacles, doesn't it? We think it feels risky because we're not covering all our bases. We're not letting clients come in through any possible door. We're saying, no, that's the door there. So is there some risk associated, some cognitive risks? Yeah, sure, definitely. But now what's the risk of not having a focused business strategy? And which is the greater risk? I think you know my answer. Roger Martin again. The goal of strategy isn't to eliminate risk, but to increase the odds of success. we're not trying to eliminate risk in a business strategy. We're trying to actually view risk as an economic positive. Peter Drucker said, all profit is derived from risk. That's pretty profound. All profit is derived from risk. You want to take more, if you want to make more money, you have to take more risk. That's just how it works. But the greatest risk, of course, is to not take any at all. And when we do that, then we are frozen in inaction and leaving behind the greatest potential source of our success. Said another way, complexity is for amateurs. You're professionals, and professionals focus their business for a profitable future.